video is not, yeah, this Zoom meeting is not getting live streamed. It is getting recorded on my laptop. Because of some subscription issues, I don't have the live stream option right now. So it will be difficult for me to, I can upload the videos on the YouTube playlist, but that takes time because when the video gets recorded on the local machine, no, you have to first convert that into MP4 format because it's in a Zoom format. And then I have to specifically log on to YouTube and then upload that video on the YouTube playlist. That takes pretty good amount of time. So if yesterday's lecture was very important lecture, we almost finished functions yesterday. I have only one or two small things that I need to talk about today. And what all I have spoken about yesterday, especially the composition of functions, you expect at least 2-3 questions from that topic or what all definitions that we have studied. So I will try to upload that ASAP on YouTube, but yeah, I'll take some time. And from now onwards, all I won't be live streaming because we'll be shifting from Zoom to Google Meet platform very soon, maybe from next week. So, and that Google Meet plan that we have, that the college has bought, that doesn't have live stream option. As in, the video won't be directly transferred to the YouTube playlist. So in that case, even if I want to do that, I will take some time because, as I told you, it's a lengthy process. So please don't miss the lectures. What all has been taught in the lectures, that similar questions are going to come in the exams. I hope my voice is audible to all of you and my video is also visible. Anyone can put a thumbs up or yes in chat box regarding that. And also I've got a message from your CR that Sunday is good for all of you for the quiz. Just let me know Sunday what time. Okay, do let me know Sunday what time also, because I will keep the quiz open not throughout the day. I'll keep it open like for 1 hour. Let me know which 1 hour, and try to adjust. If 48 students are okay with a specific 1 hour, other 10 students are not, other 10 students need to adjust. It's a Sunday, ghar pe rahoge, 1 hour, or just let me know what will be a good time for all of you. And just reminding you once again, there is one assignment that I have put on the Moodle. And again, that assignment is not just like that, an assignment. Similar kind of questions will come in. I want all of you to practice those questions. Okay, and while you are practicing, practice those questions. There are 6 questions on a nice, clear paper with a good handwriting so that you can directly upload that as an assignment. So okay, that's what I wanted to just, okay, yeah. The second announcement today at 1:45, you have a mini project session under which we have organized a design thinking workshop for all of you. Professor Deepthi, she is a professor in our computer department. She's pursuing her PhD right now. She will be taking this session, and she has taken a lot of efforts to, organize some activities for all of you. And knowing that the response of your class, see, in my DS lectures it's okay, I don't have any issues, but in sessions like such, your class is not very responsive. That doesn't leave a very good feedback on the speaker doesn't feel motivated when the speaker is talking to you. So you will be asked to keep your cameras on during the session, and I will be also part of that session. I don't want you all to make speakers wait. Okay, so I'm telling you in advance so that you can dress up properly. You don't have to worry, I'm not wearing right shirt, my hair is not nicely, tied or anything. So be properly dressed. You will be asked to keep your cameras on. And also you have to rename yourselves in a specific way. Do that. Girls and boys have to rename themselves in a specific way when they join the Google Meet. Use your personal Gmail IDs. Don't use college Gmail ID, because there's a reason for that. Only for today's session. So, okay, now switching to the lecture. Okay, great. Yesterday, we did composition of function, and I could see that a lot of you could very easily solve composition questions. So expect that in the I also. Now, this is the next type. This is just a definition, note it down. So what is an identity function? If you all remember, we had something called as reflexive relation, remember? So on the similar lines. So that A be a non-empty set, then we can define a function f from A to A as f of A is equal to A for all A belongs to A. F is called identity function on A. So for example, you can write down, it's a very simple concept. if there is a function A such that we have 1, 2, and 3, I'm defining a function from A to... Yes, yes.
My screen isn't shared.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll share my screen. Thank you for all of you who have texted in the chat box also. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible now. Okay. Yeah. So let A be a non-empty set. Then we can define a function f, which is from A to A as f of A equal to A for all A belongs to A. Kind of, it gives you reflexive relation vibes. And I remember I had told you every relation is a function. Every function is a relation, but not necessarily every relation is a function. Remember, keep that in your mind. So this is an example. You can always, I won't ask you directly the definition in MCQ. I can give you a function in the MCQ and ask you, do you think it's an identity function or not? F is a function from A to A. I can write down F is equal to 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Hence, it's an identity function. You can note down the example directly. You need not write down the definition because it's quite easy. Just give me 1 second. I need to confirm one thing. Yeah. Okay. If everyone has noted this down, I'll move on to the next thing, ma'am. Okay. So I hope everyone has noted it down. You need not write down. You can write on this part. This is quite understandable, and then you can write down the example. If everyone has written identity function, I'll move on to invertible function. While you are noting it down, just give me 2 seconds. You can note down the identity function. Okay, so now moving on to the next function, inverse function. If f is a function from A to B, then f inverse is a function of B to A. This is then, in that case, f inverse is called inverse function. You can see what I've written over here. F inverse is equal to BA such that A comma B belongs to F. I'll quickly take an example for this. Let A is equal to 1, 2. Okay, and let's say let B is equal to A comma B. I'm defining a function from A to B. I can write down 1 comma A and let's say 2 comma B. That's simply my function. If f is a function, then f inverse will be a function from B to A such that f is equal to A comma 1 and B comma 2. There is something more to it also that I will teach you in the next slide, that is invertible function. I will show you, I'll show you one example where you will realize the inverse of a function is just not possible. So there are very specific functions for you which you can find inverse functions. You cannot find f inverse for all the f's. Right now, there is an example in front of you where you had been given an f and you could easily find out f inverse, and it made sense also. So right now, this looks like this. There is one. Okay. Sorry. Okay. 1a, 2b, and just give me 1 second. Okay, so students, now this is how right now your inverse function looks like. Showing a diagrammatic representation so that there is no doubt. B is A and B. A is 1 and 2. We have A comma 1, and this is B, B comma 2. So everything seems perfectly fine over here. I hope each one of you has written the inverse function one and exactly. Yes. Boris has given me an answer. That's perfectly fine. Perfectly correct, actually. So I'll move on to the next function. Everyone has written inverse function, guys? Okay, moving on to the next function. Just note down the definition as of now. A function for which f inverse exists is called invertible function. So now I'll write down 2 examples in front of you. Yeah, we'll see a function for which an inverse is possible. We'll also see a function for which the inverse is not possible. Okay, just give me 1 second. So we have a function defined from A to B, and I'll write down function like this. We have, let's say, 1 comma A, 2 comma C. We have 3 comma D and 4 comma E. Okay. And in that case, what will be F inverse? If I have to find F inverse, it will be A comma 1. It will be C comma 2. It will be D comma 3. It will be E comma 4. Now this looks something like this. A, B. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next is A, B, C, and D. So we have 1A, 2C, we have 3D, we have 4, sorry. Okay. This would be 4D, this would be D4. Okay. This is 4B and this is B4. Okay, this is your F function. And when we do the inverse, we'll have A1, we'll have C2, we'll have D3, and we have B4. Now, do we all remember what is a valid function, what's an invalid function? Always remember, every f of a, for f of 1, for example, over here in this function, it is equal to a. Okay, so now you all can see that all of the elements in set A, they have a unique output. This is called as every input has a unique output. Okay, if you would have got something like f of 1 is equal to A or f of 1 is equal to B, you would have got, two different outputs for one input, then it was not a valid function. Similarly, over here, we have f inverse, f inverse of A is equal to 1, f inverse of B is equal to 4. All the inputs have unique outputs. So this is the function for which inverse exists. And now we'll quickly write on an example for which the inverse doesn't exist. And meanwhile, I have got a reply from Boris, and that's a perfectly correct observation. He has written a function has to be 1, 1 and onto, then only the inverse will exist. I completely agree with what he's saying. If you remember what is 1, 1 function and what is an onto function, onto function says that every element of B should be used when you are making a function. That is, every element of B should be image of some element of A. This over here, if you will see, we have used all the elements of B, and then that is your onto function. Your one-to-one function says every element of B should be image of only one element of A. That is, you cannot have something like 1A and 2A. A is image of 1, A is image of 2 also. You can have only all the elements of B should be used only once. They are used only once, and all of them are actually used. Now I'll give you an example where such a case doesn't happen. For example, jaldi se ek example likh lete hain. Zyada confuse hone ka zarurat nahi hai. I'll give you an example over here. A is equal to 1, 2, and 3. B is equal to, let's say, 4 and 5 and 6. Okay. Maybe only 4 and 5. Now, I have defined a function from A to B such that we have 1, 4, we have 2, 5, and we have 3, 5. So is this a valid function? It's absolutely a valid function because all the inputs have only one output. Now, so just showing you, this is how it looks like. We have 1, 4, we have 2, 5, and we have 3, 5. That's perfectly fine. Let's find out F inverse. F inverse by default means 4, 1, 5, 2, and 5, 3. So if you can see, 4 has one specific output. 5 has now two outputs. 1 is 2, 1 is 3. That is not something which makes it a valid function. In other words, diagrammatically dekh lo. B mein tumhare paas you have 4 and 5. A has 1, 2, and 3. You get 4, 1. You get 5, 2. But you get 4, 3 also. This is not a valid function. This is a valid function. Hence, for a function like this, F inverse doesn't exist. This is one small example. You need to, there can be another example. For example, which over here, look at the example. Okay, let's say there is a function from A to B, which is 1, 4, 2, 5, and 3, 5. Perfectly fine. It's really okay if 6 is not covered. It's just a generic function. It's not a on, onto. I'm not talking about onto, one to, anything. Just look at the example. The F inverse will be something like this: 4, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3. So what is happening? 4 has one specific output. 5 over here has, again, two different outputs. So for a function like this over here, and where sets are A and B has 4, 5, 6 as elements, this F inverse doesn't exist. Now, हमने example क्यों किया? Because we have a definition that says a function for which F inverse exists. It means there are some functions for which F inverse doesn't exist. So now तुम लोग सोचोगे यार याद कैसे रखें अगर एग्जाम में लिखना है तो, like Boris has given an answer. Try to make a function which is both onto and one-to-one. ये एक वैसा function in front of you, which is one-to-one also and which is onto also. Whenever you will make a function like this, that is this, it will always be an invertible function. I would really like you to write down these two examples also, where you have two kinds of functions for which the inverse doesn't exist. Quickly write. अगर तुम लोग को भूल गया है, you are not able to, तो थोड़ा सा revise कर लेना Saturday, Sunday को. What is a valid function? What's not a valid function? We had done this in last to last lecture. So on the basis of that concept only, we are defining what's an invertible function, what's not an invertible function. If you are quickly done with it, just let me know, because now we're going to do some different set of problems. Just let me know. If everyone is done noting down the examples over here. If you think there is nothing much to explain over here, you can always search on internet what is invertible function, what's inverse function. So many great explanations you can read from there also. It's not something that only I can teach you. You can read this on your own also. Are we done over here? I've got only one yes from Boris and Andrea maybe. No, I've got only one yes from Boris. What about others, guys? Should I move on to the... Okay. Okay. So now what we'll do is, so officially, this is the last, this was the last topic of module number 2. Your module number 1 was logic. Remember? And, or, negation, truth tables, laws, distributive law, commutative law, absorption law, De Morgan's law, all that was module number 1. We were doing module number 2. Module number 2 had relations. We did types of relations: reflexive relation, symmetric, asymmetric, antisymmetric, transitive relation. Then we spoke about universal relation. We also, and after I think relations, we immediately shifted to Warshall's algorithm. Warshall algorithm was one algorithm which I gave you to solve also. That will come for 5 marks in I. Then after that, we started with functions. We spoke about one-to-one function. We spoke about onto function. We spoke about bijective function. Then we, in yesterday's lecture, we did composition of function. And today we did some 2-3 extra terms. Now, I'm going to talk about some specific kind of questions, which I'm going to write them over here. These are the questions which are based on the concept of relations. Okay. But then these are the kind of questions that when you see for the first time, you can't just solve them like that. You can't do that because these are different little peculiar questions, and they have again and again appeared in the university exams. So what I have done is, I've noted down certain set of questions that have been repeated again and again in university exams, and I'll solve them in front of you. You'll solve them along with me. And you might find, how do we remember this? You don't have to remember this. You have to solve such questions, some similar questions, then only you get a practice of these questions. Okay, so note down the question. The first question that today we are going to do is, they have come in the university exams for 5 marks, for 8 marks. So please pay attention. I hope the size is okay. The first question that we're going to do is, show that if a relation on set A is transitive and irreflexive, then it is asymmetric. Note down the question. I'll start with the solution part side by side. So remember this if then It means it's a conditional statement. We are supposed to prove if a relation on set A is transitive and reflexive So what I'm doing is I'm writing this statement in conditional form. This is what we're supposed to prove, right? If a relation on set A is transitive and reflexive, then it is asymmetric. Okay, now I'm writing a small example here. If I am hungry, you need not write it down. This part is only for the explanation. Then I will eat food. I can also write it like this. I'm hungry implies I will eat food. Okay. Now let's say if I ask you a question, you have to prove this. Whenever I'm hungry, I eat food, you have to prove it. There is a way that is called as proof by contradiction. If you want, you can write it down also, because later when you will read it, maybe this example may help you. This example is not a part of the solution. Okay, this is just a random example I'm writing in front of you. So proof by contradiction says you assume something, right? On the basis of that assumption, you keep on doing your calculations. And by doing certain calculations, you reach at a point where you end up contradicting your assumption itself. In that case, whatever you have assumed, that is proved to be wrong. And that is called as proof by contradiction. So for example, what I wanted to tell you is, with the help of this example, I would like to prove this statement: if I'm hungry, then I will eat food, in this way. Assume I'm hungry, okay, and I will not eat food. I'm gonna assume this. I'm never going to change this part of the conditional statement. Guys, this part of the conditional statement is called as antecedent, and the right-hand side of the conditional statement is called as consequent. Whenever I have to prove a conditional statement, I can prove that conditional statement with the help of proof by contradiction. In proof by contradiction, what we do is we keep antecedent as it is. If I'm hungry, I change the consequent, then I won't eat food. This is what I'm going to assume. And after that, certain calculations I'm going to do, certain proofs, certain something I'm going to do. And by doing certain calculations or whatever, if I reach at a point that says, I started with this assumption, okay? And if I reach at a conclusion that says, I'm not hungry. So the point is, मैं तुम्हें क्या explain करने का try कर रही हूँ? We're going to make some assumption. For example, here the assumption is, if I'm hungry, then I will not eat food. On the basis of this, I'm going to do some calculations. After that, I will reach at a point where I will end up contradicting my assumption, because my assumption was that I'm anyway hungry. Only the solution is that whether I will eat food or I will not eat food. I'm saying I will not eat food. Okay. But then I end up saying I'm not hungry also. But that's not the case. I am hungry. This is called as you contradicting something that you have assumed to be true. In that case, when you do that, you say you are contradicting yourself, what you have assumed. Hence, we will go with the statement that whenever I am hungry, I will eat food. This is one way of proving conditional statements, that you start with an assumption. Okay, like this was the assumption that I started with. I did some calculations and I ended up going against my assumption only that I am not hungry, but I am hungry actually. Yeah. And then you say, because you have contradicted your own assumption, so you end up going with the original statement that was, if I'm hungry, I will eat food. Okay. So this was just फिर भी तुम्हें लग रहा होगा यार थोड़ा बैठ नहीं रहा है. It's okay. We'll start with the original question now. So I hope that will make more sense. So the question is, again, I'm writing the question. R is, if R is, I'm going to write it shorter. If R is transitive and irreflexive, then R is asymmetric. So now let's write on the solution. Let's assume, this you have to write down, R is transitive. Let's assume there is a relation R which is transitive and irreflexive, but not asymmetric. This is my assumption. Let's assume, I want to show you that I'm assuming. This is my assumption, okay? As I am keeping R is transitive and irreflexive as it is, but I'm saying it is not asymmetric, okay? And just a quick reminder to you, यहाँ पे जल्दी से मैं तुम लोग को reminder दे रही हूँ कि reflex ये सब क्या होता है. Remember, when you have a relation like this, 1, 2, and you have 2, 3, then you have 1, 3. Okay, because you have ARB, because you have BRC, then you have ARC also. This is a transitive relation. This is irreflexive because you don't have 1, 1s, 2, 2s, and 3, 3s. And if you will see, so you have to somehow prove that R is, this always happens whenever R is transitive and irreflexive, it is asymmetric. Asymmetric तुम लोग को याद है क्या होता है? Asymmetric is this. I'm writing it over here. Asymmetric says if there is ARB, then BRA should not be there. Transitive says if you have ARB and BRC, then you should have ARC also. And irreflexive says for all the elements that belong to set A, you should not have anything like this. I was not sure whether you all remember these things.